Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the February 28th meeting of the City Utilities Committee. I am Jason Winston, Chair of the committee. I am joined by my colleague to my right, Vice Chair Andrea Boone. To my left, we have my colleagues Jason Dozier, Dustin Hillis, and we have Howard Shook. At this time, I will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda. Motion by Dozier, second by Hillis. Can you please open the vote, Mr. Johnson?
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. The consent agenda has been adopted.
Thank you. And also like to acknowledge we've been joined by Councilmember Antonio Lewis. Next, can we have a motion to approve the minutes? So moved. Motion by Lewis, second by Hillis. Can you please open the vote?
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The minutes have been approved.
Yep. Is the microphone working? Can we tell?
Mr. Chair, we have one speaker for public comment, Brother Anthony Muhammad.
Brother Muhammad, the floor is yours.
As I told when the representative let you know, I had someone to call me and tell me when I made my public comments last week, you did not have the mic on. So I want you to make sure that you have the mic on, Mr. Chairman of this committee. And I want my 4 minutes back.
We have the mic on. They can hear you on. It's just not as loud in here.
I said last week, the last time I was here, I listened to it myself. When I made my creed, as I make it now, the mic was not on. You turned it on in my opportunity as I was speaking, Mr. Jason Winston. Now, can you put my 5 minutes back up there?
Sorry, 5 minutes?
I mean, what is it, 20 seconds?
We'll let you go ahead. You can, the floor is yours.
I like to show respect to y'all. I am that I am, a Negus, King of Kings, committed, indigenous, antiquity, soulful, spiritual, divine energy, masculine. I command the dark matter, mama. I command the dark matter, mama, antimatter and matter of the cosmos, divine energy, to teach today and awaken the miseducated Negro of the 21st century to the knowledge of your soulful and acoustic records. The mama of the cosmos has that will for you to know that you are the first families of the earth. You are the first families of creation. You're the first families of all the sciences. You, the miseducated Negro, must return to the knowledge of self. You, the father of the earth, wants you to know you are the first royal family. You are the family of royalty before Queen Elizabeth and her family. You have the mental capability to use your thoughts, dark matter, antimatter, masculine energy, to make your thoughts come into physical manifestation. And all human beings have access to spirituality, and we must begin to turn back to the knowledge of self. As I was here this morning watching the Asian American and other Far Eastern people represent their meetings, they were very much representing the interests of how to collaborate for the benefit of their people. Why as I'm coming here today talking about Mr. Mayor returning money back to the federal government? Why as I'm talking about Mr. Westmoreland, 2018, talking about $1 million of workforce development money being forced to go back because we didn't take time to use that money. Why as I'm talking about the Atlanta Law's $4 million federal grant to train low-skilled people? When you can have foreigners that come in this country, open up stores in our community, take the resources out of our community and build for their own families and their own friends, yet we have you all on this committee not even want to stop and recognize now you got people on the street that need somebody to help them, need somebody to get them off the street. Now, I want to give Mr. Antonio Lewis some support. I will in community development for his work he's doing in his district where Ms. Sheffield was, because we had these problems under her leadership. So I'm going to say this, Mr. Winston, as I get ready to sit down. I know that I come down and agitate, but Frederick Douglass said, you agitate and agitate until you get resolution. I see you got money for an ordinance 23101099, Department of Watershed Management and Public Works. I've been asking that there be something done for our streets in Tail Road and County Line Road and Niska Lake. Public Works has something to do with that. I told them to get it striped. I went to the Transportation Committee. I'm just bringing that up because sometimes you have them here. I thank you for allowing me to speak, and I greet you as I did not. Assalamu alaikum, Ashe, Ashe, and Ashe. Mark Matrock Hotel. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Muhammad. Next, we will have a presentation by the Department of Watershed Management. Morning, Commissioner Browning.
Hey, good morning, Chairman Winston and City Utility Committee members. I'll wait for the presentation to display. All right. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to update you on Department of Watershed Management's progress during the second quarter of fiscal year 2023. It's for the period of July through December of 2022. Advancing to slide 3, this illustrates DWM's departmental organizational chart. Next, I'll cover the administrative and financial highlights. If you advance to slide 5, this provides an update regarding our personnel status. For the reporting period, Department of Watershed Management's authorized positions were 1,633 positions, with a little bit over 1,200 filled and 391 vacancies. Our percent filled is roughly 76%, and our vacancy rate is 24%, roughly 24%. Like other local and national water utilities, we're continuing to experience the effects of the current competitive jobs market. As such, we're continuing efforts to closely manage and monitor our hiring approvals and vacancies. We're continuing to focus efforts to fill mission-critical positions within our core operations, and are continuing to increase recruitment efforts. Department HR is continuing to assist with hosting hiring blitzes for mission-critical positions via career fairs and related recruitment events, job postings on external professional websites, and water organizations. This past January, we held a second job fair in conjunction with Councilman Antonio Lewis at the Roselle Finn Recreational Center in Southeast Atlanta, which was well attended and a huge success. Over 300 job applicants attended the event. And Councilman Lewis, thank you for your support. Advancing through slides 6 through 8, this provides a snapshot of second quarter fiscal year 23 financials. Our O&M expenditures were roughly 49% of our personnel and roughly 36% of non-personnel budget allocations. As of December, our fiscal year actual revenues were at roughly $353 million, while expenses were back within range and budget at $313 million. Slide 8 provides a graphic that illustrates our revenues, fiscal year 22 actuals in comparison to fiscal year 23 projections and actuals. Fiscal year 23 actuals continue to outpace projections and even higher fiscal year 22 actuals. So our revenues continue to be on a steady and solid climb year over year. Advancing to slide 9, this provides a summary of our municipal option sales tax revenues through December. Most revenues also continuing to trend higher than projections by a little bit over $3 million monthly, and continues to be affirmative for the department. Advancing to slide 10, this provides a summary of participants for DWM's Float Initiative in support of our collections effort. The Float Initiative commenced in July as a proactive means to connect with customers in the community to address all questions and concerns relating outstanding water balances and billings issues. The initial program ran for a 12-week period running through July through October, and due to extreme positive feedback from customers, we extended the program through December 31st. Advancing to slide 11, this provides an overview of the recent history of DWM's collections efforts. It recaps the department's efforts to address accounts with aged arrears. That's been a longstanding issue. Implementation of the Float Initiative to engage single-family resident customers to address accounts with outstanding balances while utilizing all available programs and funding to help customers in need. DWM recently obtained a dedicated phone number for customers to contact our customer care and collections teams directly. That number is 404-546-WATER. This information will be launched on all of our print and media communications. DWM is continuing efforts to address commercial accounts. We're continuing to address properties with evidence of theft, vacant with consumption, and administer liens where appropriate to aid collections efforts because of real estate sales and transactions. Advancing to slide 12, it's a graphic that illustrates the progress to reduce the outstanding accounts, receivables across all account types through January 2023. There are obvious fluctuations in totals month over month. In the coming months, we'll be adding additional resources and exploring possible supplemental resources, third party, to assist with collections efforts. DWM will continue to implement enhancements that are customer-centric with a continued strategic focus on all three account types. The next several slides, 13 through 16, provides an update on DWM's Care and Conserve program, including our bill payment, our LEWAP program, and plumbing assistance support services provided to customers. The program is charged with assisting single-family, low to moderate income residential customers who are experiencing financial hardships with outstanding water bills and plumbing repairs. Thus far this fiscal year, DWM has assisted a total of 591 customers, and roughly $1.5 million in assistance has been provided. We're continuing to refer customers in need to the low-income water assistance program. Customers have benefited from nearly $1.2 million from that program. Similarly, DWM has provided nearly $47,000 in bill payment assistance, as well as $221,000 in plumbing assistance. Through the expanded Care and Conserve program that now includes restoration support for low-income customers impacted by sewer backups and water damage. An additional $900,000 was allocated for the expanded program, which includes materials, contractor labor, short-term housing displacement during repairs as needed, and administrative services. DWM is working to assist 3 customers' properties at present that are in various phases of restoration repairs. Slide 16 provides a current overview of the LEWAP program. Currently, 2 service providers support DWM's customers. Care and Conserve staff coordinate with the providers and provide status of approved financial support extended to the customers. LEWAP has instituted new parameters for the program for bills exceeding $200. Eligible arrears balances are from February 1st, 2020 to date. The max past due assistance is $2,000 now. In current bills without a balance, the max available credit is between $200 and $300. Next, I'll cover some of our workforce development initiatives and strategic partnerships. Advancing to slide 18. This highlights a few of DWM's workforce development initiatives. Last year, the Department of Watershed Management centralized all training across the department by creating the DWM University. is tasked with creating, providing, and fostering an array of innovative and diverse training courses programs, utilizing both internal and external resources to leverage a skilled and knowledgeable workforce. Current extensive catalog of 200-plus courses with 3 focus areas: soft skills training, technical job-specific training, life, health, and safety training. We are developing a new OLIO, Office of Linear Infrastructure, employee orientation for new hires that will focus on facility site visits, policies and procedures, health and safety, vehicle equipment training, and job-specific tasks, such as excavations, confined space, and accident reporting. DWM is also working to launch a heavy equipment training program that will focus on 6 types of essential equipment frequently utilized, including cranes, backhoes, front-end loaders, excavators, sewer vectors, and lift trucks. We're looking to partner with local vendors to facilitate this training. And we'll also be partnering with the Atlanta Technical College, as they have developed a curriculum that is focused on careers in the water industry. Currently, 6 courses are planned, including such as Intro to Water Treatment Processes and Distribution, Intro to Wastewater Treatment and Collection, Sewer Vector Combination, Vehicle Basics. DWM is also working on partnerships with Atlanta Public Schools and will be participating in the city's SEED program that will prepare graduating seniors for career opportunities. This will begin next school year. We are renewing our partnership with Willow Spring Living Women's Academy that allows women to complete a 12-week apprenticeship in consideration for full-time employment once the program is complete. And this is for women who are at risk or who are coming out of a domestic situation. And lastly, we're continuing our partnership with PAC-3 program that facilitates career opportunities for men and women who are re-entering the workforce. Next, I'll cover our operational highlights. Advance into slide 22. This highlights the department's progress by the numbers relating our core services and functions for the reporting period. Advancing to slide 23, this provides a summary of activities relating to our site development division. For the period, 491 permits were issued for both single-family residential and commercial, including multifamily and subdivisions. A summary of the number of plan reviews, both new and resubmittals, and also personnel updates and progress of filling critical vacancies within the site development team. We're utilizing AE resources to support with daily efforts while we work to hire internally. Advancing to slide 24, this provides an update on DWM's internal metrics. We observed a continued downward trend in O&M and power utilization for drinking water treatment, continued compliance with drinking water and wastewater compliance. We saw an uptick in the number of water main breaks and new water work orders for the period that can be attributed to the December frigid weather. Advancing to slide 25, this is Office of Watershed Protections. SLA average for the quarter was 94%, which is up from last quarter's 88%. Advancing to slide 26, this is our Office of Customer Care and Billing Services. They continue to have 100% SLA for the period. Advancing to slide 27, this is Office of Linear Infrastructure's SLA for the period, which was 95.6%, down from last period's 97.7%. The reduction is due to scheduled time off due to the holidays and, again, the December frigid temperatures. We continue to work with Department of HR to fill critical vacancies and add additional crews to increase the team's capacity. Advancing to slide 28, this provides an update on OLIO service requests. As you can see, 38% of service requests were relating to our sewer collections division, while 62% of service requests were relating to our water distribution division. Next, I'll cover compliance briefly. Slide 30, we experienced 5 NPDES violations during the reporting period. We had a phosphorus exceedances at RM Clayton and Utoy Creek. There were abnormal spikes detected, and we're coordinating to trace possible sources. We also had 1 incident of total suspended solids exceedance at South River due to an electrical issue that impacted solids removal, and that was addressed. Compliance continues to be a top priority for the department, and the team is focused on accountability and compliance with permit requirements. Advancing to slide 31, this provides an update regarding our environmental and construction enforcement activities for the reporting period. The team completed a total of 2,798 inspections, which is up from last quarter's roughly 2,600. They completed roughly 2,400 sites, or 88%, were found to be in compliance, whereas 340 sites, 12%, were found to be in non-compliance. 123 stop work orders were issued, which is up from last quarter's 92. 9 citations were issued, which is up from last quarter's 7. And 8 court sessions were attended, which is down from 15 from last quarter. And 912 fines were levied. Supplemental slides or handouts were provided for other activities that were requested previously, so apologies that the slides were not included in your published deck. Wanted to ensure that you had the information. Slide 32, I'll cover capital improvements program. So advancing to slide 33, this is our 5-year CIP, $0.75 billion, and is comprised of 82 active projects. Slide 34 provides a breakdown regarding the status of each of the 82 capital projects. Consolidated MBE goal is 24%, and the actual is 25.8%. Similarly, the FBE goal is 6.9%, and the actual is 14.2%. Current CIP has created roughly 7,200 jobs, and we're continuing to balance capital investments across all operations to ensure we're completing upgrades to the most critical assets and to ensure the long-term serviceability. Advancing to slide 36, well, that provides just a summary, more detailed summary across all of our program categories. So advancing to slide 36, just provides a few of our notable projects. We got the Northport Storage Tank and Pump Station. That work will be hopefully getting underway with next month, at the earliest, in April at the latest. We have our Upper Proctor Creek Capacity Relief Projects, DNC, that's a continuance of our Rodney Cook Park initiative to mitigate stormwater flooding within that community. We have our Sewer Group 4 small diameter rehab contracts A and B. Those are in support of our consent decree program, making necessary repairs to small diameter sewers across the city. We have our Entrant Creek Water Reclamation Center decommissioning and South River clarifiers. That work is continuing. And in closing, I want to recognize and give a tremendous thanks to the valued men and women of the department for their continued hard work and support in providing water service to the citizens of Atlanta. Subject to your questions, this concludes my quarterly update.
Thank you, Commissioner Browning. I'd like to open it up at this time for comments from my colleagues.
Councilmember Lewis.
Thank you, Commissioner Browning, and thank you for the work you've done in our district, particularly with the road that on Cleveland Avenue had the water leaking in. I appreciate you for not only fixing the road, fixing that leak, making it looks better than it's ever looked over there on that street. So I appreciate you.
You're very welcome. Thank
I
you.
appreciate you also for jumping onto any issue that we have. I put you on the email and you email back and you bring in the people that actually do the work. And so I appreciate you for being so hands-on with that. My questions today would be surrounding around your hiring. And when I looked at the book that you gave us, at the handouts that you gave us on page 5, we said we have the job fair we hosted had over 500 people that came. The most popular job that was there was Watershed. We have reports back from different departments about how many people they've hired. We have reports back from departments that were hiring on the spot. I know Watershed has the autonomy that other departments don't have. The flexibility that y'all are the ones who really can hire on the spot. Other people really can't do it. And so I'm wondering, when I look at this, it says that you have 391 total vacant positions, and we know 309 people applied from that job fair. It says 308 are in process, and 83 are in hold. Are the 308 in process all the folks from that job fair from almost 2 months ago now?
That's a good question. So a breakdown of the vacancy, 391. So the 308 are those that are authorized, that we're looking to fill within immediate term. So those are mission critical. And the 83% are whole, those are the non-mission critical. My understanding from the job fair is we got tremendous turnout. As you know, we were coming off of the job fair at the C.T. Martin Natatorium. We had over 500 to attend that. So a lot of the base level positions, we got a tremendous number of resumes from that first job fair. And honestly, we were able to fill a significant amount of those. The next tier of positions will require a little bit more skills and if not certifications. So HR is continuing to go through, sift through the resumes that we got at the Roselle Fan event and working to connect with applicants that will maybe candidates for the next tier of positions that we need to fill.
I know the first event didn't have the same amount of people. Just sticking on to that, when we think about the position. So with the training program that you talked about, that actually, in which we're giving folks the skills to actually transfer to different departments, how are you promoting that, and how many people are actually in that program? Because when you think about having 300 first that, and then I'll get over to my next question. So how many people are actually in that program, and how are we promoting it? Because
none as of yet. Remember, I'm covering end of last year, so this is something we're going to work to kick off this current calendar year.
Okay.
So we're working to finalize the approach, the vendors, the curriculum for that program. So we'll work to work with DHR to promote on city's website, obviously our Watershed website, social media, all of the media and communications platforms.
And to confirm, you're saying out of the 391 open positions, you have enough people to fill all of the entry-level positions from the C.T. Martin Job Fair and from the Roselle Fan Job Fair. And so I know the C.T. Martin Job Fair was when? When was that, C.T.? She's saying December. The previous one, right? December. So
yep.
December and January. And so how many open positions do we have now?
I'll have to get with HR. I can get you a list of a number of the vacancies
because
that we have now.
If we brought in that many people, if you said 1,000 people seen us, I know 309 went into my job fair. All those entry-level positions should be full.
Again, I mean, my understanding was they were pretty much, we got significant amount of resumes at the C.T. Martin. So, we're keeping a rolling roster of candidates, which is good. And so, as folks leave, we're able to tap into those lists and call applicants and see if they're still interested in in joining the team.
I want to know if we could do a hiring, a interview fest, right? An interview fair for the position that you didn't fill.
Yeah.
If we have 309 people, because my folks told me, I don't know nobody who got a job in Watershed. And I know we've been reaching out. I don't know a person who came to my job fair and got, and that's a real thing. My folks have been reaching out. Today we have a young man whose mama called me this morning because she said I made a promise to her son almost, and he will be down here before this meeting ends because he's a 25-year-old man from the city of Atlanta, former Army veteran, and he wants to work in our watershed department. I'm just not seeing people getting positions in it. The PAT 3 program, how many people is that going on now, or are we about to bring that on?
It was a program that we were participating in a couple of years ago prior to COVID, so we're looking to reactivate that.
Okay, so no one is in that program either.
I think we have some employees that were hired through the program. I'm not sure how many are still remaining, but I can get that number for you.
Once again, I want to be able to confirm that because I was going to ask I had a slate of questions to ask about the bottleneck of why people aren't getting jobs. So you're saying that because in December and January, which is 2 months ago, tomorrow will be March, you're saying that you have I know we gave you the applicants to actually get the folks in. You're saying that we've actually hired the people, or where will we be? Because since December and January, if you got that many open positions, and I know myself and Councilmember Boone, we did everything we can to bring folks to those job fairs. I don't want them to feel like we just wasted their time. So you're saying you got these positions filled, and we don't need to have a hiring job fair. I mean, a interviewing fair at Roselle Fan and at C.T. Martin for those people.
What I can do is I can provide you a report on the applicants that attended the C.T. Martin as well as the Roselle Fan job fairs, which positions they expressed interest in, how many were hired, and how many vacancies remain for each of the positions that we were hiring for.
Okay, and my next question would be, if there's a way we can look at moving people like who've been working in the watershed department, because it sounds like the tier 2 position is the position we can't fill.
It requires a little bit more experience. Yes.
Is there a way we can look at training them now? The folks that are in these lower level positions who've been great employees working in the watershed department so that we can actually bring in some new blood?
That's exactly what we're doing currently. So we're looking at the employees that are in those base level positions and their tenure with the department and working to promote them to those higher positions, to your point, so we can hire new incoming candidates.
All right, and the reason why I'm asking some of these questions is because we had the State of the District and District 12 State of the District, and each department, either the commissioner or a number 2 came except Watershed. And so I wasn't able to ask these questions from anybody from Watershed.
Understood.
So I appreciate you, but is there a person you can give me of an HR person in Watershed that I can work with so I can get these numbers sooner than later? I want to be working with a specific person so that I can get people real jobs.
So our HR partner is Director Jennifer Hicks. What I'll do is I'll send you her contact information following this meeting.
So my question would be, can I commit the people who've applied to these jobs, because they ain't receiving them back, they need an interview. They need something to say, either they've been, whatever's going on. Can I have someone that I can send folks to? Like when they call me, I'm fielding calls I shouldn't be fielding, but I understand, I respect it.
Yeah,
Can I have a
understood.
person in your department that I can, in HR, that I can say, hey, this person can tell you where we are with your application, or this person can say, you're not going to get hired?
I understood. So I'll get you the contact information for Director Hicks.
Okay.
She'll give you a point of contact within her team that
Okay.
you can coordinate with.
All right, thank you.
Right? No problem.
Thank you, Councilmember Lewis. Next, we have Councilmember Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Browning. I just want to echo Councilmember Lewis's earlier comments that you are so responsive and so everything we give you, you action it immediately, and it's just so remarkable to see. And we've gotten a lot of good work done in District 4 because of your leadership. So I just wanted to thank you for that. Just a couple questions. The first, one of the things we have reached out to you and your team about is with some issues we've had in our city parks. Typically in those situations, and I don't know if I need to go to you or Commissioner Cutler, y'all were very helpful in Rose Circle Park with the flooding we had in that park and the backstop in that pipe system. But we also have a park in Dean Russ Park that is a water retention system for the maintenance of the water features. I'm assuming that's your team, or is that Parks and Recreation team?
Yes, it's our team. So we manage the water feature while Parks manages the grounds. And we have a third-party vendor
Okay.
that handles maintenance for the water feature.
Okay, and in that situation, a lot of trash has been falling into the retention pond and is kind of gotten a lot. If you can have your team come out and look at that. Commissioner Cutler knows this, but I go to our district's parks every other day of my 2-year-old, and just something that happened to see just a couple weeks ago. One of the things that comes up a lot with my constituents, and I know we talked about this before, as we have situations in which water mains need to be repaired or water needs to be cut off. I'm curious about the DWN's data quality in terms of if you have customer email or phone number data. I recognize that Notify ATL is run out of the Department of Customer Service, but I wonder, 'cause I get all these great automated email notifications when these water main breaks happen and when the repair work is happening. I'm curious as to what we can do to streamline the communication with the customers directly. Because I every now and then I'll get a situation where, yes, the notification does go out to me, to our office, but I don't see it in time to notify the impacted community or let alone the impacted customer. And I just was curious if you know whether or not there's an opportunity to streamline that process so the customers get that information much more quickly.
Yeah, that's a great question, Sam Dozier. And I noticed that that's one of my DWN's goals for the current calendar year is to look towards some efficiencies with notifications. And I've gotten tremendous feedback from citizens as well. And so you do have the email notifications that go out. We're looking to situate a dynamic map on our departmental website that shows where water main breaks are occurring throughout the city. Also working with my communications team and our IT team to figure out how we can send out text messages, but that'll be driven by customers that have provided their cell phone numbers for under billing information. I think what's helpful is as we're going through a lot of the arrears, the collections efforts, we're able to update customer account information. So, text messages will be something that'll be forthcoming. We've talked about whether we need to do one calls or just notification calls to customers within a certain mile radius of a main break. So those are some of the things we're looking at exploring, and we want to make sure that we provide any and all resources in order to get information out. Obviously, we post on Nextdoor, all the social media outlets, but understanding that some of our senior residents don't use, they're not as technology savvy, so we want to make sure that we connect with them as well.
Do you have a decision point at the culmination of all this exploratory work, or do you, I guess when can I tell my constituents that there's change that's going to happen to help inform?
We're working diligently on it currently, so I think we'll have an array of solutions that I'll be able to talk about during my next quarterly update. Ideally, I'd want to get this rolled out latter part of spring.
Okay. Oh, wow. That's okay.
Yeah, we're working diligently.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my next question, the Department of City Planning, and sorry, Mr. Chairman, I'll keep throwing all this CDHS stuff into your utilities meeting. Department of City Planning is rolling out a new permitting process beginning, I think, tomorrow, since it's March 1st. I know a lot of the permitting holdup is with site development out of your office. Are y'all involved in that work with the permitting kind of refresh?
Absolutely. It's a collaborative team that we've been a part of since the beginning of discussions about updates, improvements, enhancements to the citywide permitting process. So Our site development team plays a part in it. We also have our capacity certification group as well as our water availability group. All three of those groups are instrumental to permitting. And so site development is already situated here within City Hall. We're going to be looking to co-locate our capacity certification and water availability teams here as well to foster that collaboration. As I indicated in the presentation, we're going to be hiring more resources to support and be a part of that so that we can keep the pace and make sure that we're not a bottleneck in the overall process.
Thank you. And then two more questions, and I promise to make them quick. The SEED program that was mentioned before, the partnership with APS, that's the first time I've seen that program reference. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? What's the genesis behind that? And it looks like y'all are about to start that with the next school year. I'm just curious how that came about. It's something that I know a lot of us have advocated for on a campaign trail, seeing stronger linkages and relationships between the city and with our schools. So that just really stuck out to me, and I would love to learn more about how y'all are working that.
You know, as a department, we want to try to make sure that we're doing our part to be visible in the community. We care about the youth. The mayor has his initiative of Year of the Youth. We want to do our part to participate in that and be a catalyst for that. We look at any opportunity for partnerships with APS because we see an opportunity to try to piquet the youth's interest in the water industry. So we were approached, you know, to consider participating in the program. We saw it as a great opportunity. It's going to help those up and rising seniors who may not have an interest in attending college, but who want to jump into the workforce and, you know, develop a career, which, you know, water industry is what we do. Certainly want to make sure as we are continuing to replace our retiring workforce with younger folks and bringing them a part of the team. So the SEED program provides us an opportunity to do that.
And I think it's great. I think it hits on what Councilmember Lewis was talking about with hiring Atlantans and making sure that they're continuing to be a part of the growth and the success of the city. So I think that's great. And my last question. So we've had permeable pavers installed in communities in Southeast Atlanta since 2016-ish. Any reflections? I know this was federal funding that came in for kind of this as a pilot program in Peoplestown and Summerhill, Mechanicsville. I mean, I know that they were designed for capacity relief. Is there an opportunity for an expansion of that program in other parts of the city as we see flooding in the Proctor Creek watershed and the Utoy Creek watershed? I know we had federal funds for this, but is this something that your department is thinking about as we grow as a city? I mean, they look nice, but they also provide a great service for our city. And then just also too, if y'all have had any issues on the maintenance side of things, if you can kind of unpack that a bit and give us kind of where your heads are at six years in.
Yeah, I have an ideology. If we build it, we have to maintain it, obviously. And the pavers are no different. They are a green measure that we've used to your point, to help with some of the stormwater challenges, flooding in certain areas of the city. I think they're site-specific. I mean, there's lots of lessons learned from the installation in Southeast Atlanta. They do as they're designed to do to address surface water, stormwater challenges. With that, we do have to maintain them. And so we have a contract in place that assists with making sure that they're operating as they should. There are opportunities to use them in it's really kind of site-specific, to be honest. I think that was our first go at putting it in within a right-of-way within the city. And so, not sure that I'd use them in a right-of-way. Again, it becomes a little bit cumbersome if we have other utility work to do. You have to pull them up and make sure you reset them appropriately. But, you know, with our projects, we really look at the location and figure out what's going to be the appropriate measure to address whatever the stormwater issue is within the location. So, definitely an opportunity to continue to use them, but it's definitely site-specific.
Okay. And just thinking through where there's some major projects happening in District 4, chief amongst them is probably Centennial Yards with the Gulch redevelopment. As y'all are reviewing permits and applications and all these sorts of things, I think I'm gonna continue to advocate for more green infrastructure across the city, but just would love to know that your team is also advocating for that as well through the y'all's capacity. So just want.
Yeah, we're very passionate about green infrastructure, similar to gray infrastructure. Again, where it makes sense to do a green installation or a gray or a hybrid, we consider those things. So we're pro-green infrastructure, so we'll continue to implement as we can.
Good to hear. That concludes my portion, Mr. Chair. I yield.
Thank you, Councilmember Dozier. I want to acknowledge we've been joined by Councilmember Michael Julian Bond. Next, we'll have questions from Councilmember Shook.
Thank you. What's the status of the uncollectible debt write-off legislation?
Jonathan Williams, Office of Financial Administration. We're currently updating that list to share with our administration, and Chief Bala has to sign off on that. The dollars are about $21 million as of today.
Has there been some sort of complication? Because we were
Not
kind of
really.
expecting this like a month ago.
That's true. We would have been finished at this point. I would say we haven't done this in the past 3 or 4 years, and trying to get everybody acclimated to the process is taking a minute.
All right,
So we'll
looking
get
forward
this-
to it. Slide 31, it looks like only about 1 in 12 stop work orders result in a citation or did this quarter, with an average fine of $100. Just your comments on that? I wonder if we're adequately modifying bad behavior with those numbers.
Yeah, so I've met with the erosion an enforcement team, based on comments we provided last quarter about decreasing the number of times to repeat site visits, that were maybe a little bit of leniency there, but I do know, tracking some of the court sessions, some of them got reset, maybe because of the holidays, and so that's maybe the reason why the number is down. But DC Mahadri, can you provide any additional context on the court citations?
Good morning, Alex Mahadri, Office of the Watershed Protection. We do meet on a weekly basis with our enforcement staff. We advise them that they need to toughen up. If they see a violation, go ahead and give a citation, a follow-up. And so we are tracking that. However, a lot of times that these cases end up in the court as far as how much the finances is generated. It depends on the court system and their leniency toward the person who has done the offense.
Yeah, some of this is beyond your control. It just I can't help but worry about wondering what the average staff cost time across the entire city is to collect $900.
Yes, Councilman. But every week we meet with them. I talk to them more than once or twice per week, advising them that please go ahead, and if you see a problem, you need to be very strict on it, and we are improving in that area.
All right, last question, unrelated to your report, but is a request to extend the consent decree timeline under consideration?
We're exploring it. The reason is we're carefully watching the inflationary market. Supply chain is a big thing. Number of vendors who are interested in doing work with us. You recently had a General Contractors Roundtable about 2 weeks ago, just to pull in as many of those contractors and kind of understand, their decision-making of doing business with the city or not. But we have been tracking pretty closely availability of materials. There's been huge delays in concrete, long lead times in pipe materials. So all those things are impacting schedules and our potential ability to deliver.
The deadline's suddenly not all that far off, is it? How are we tracking in terms of project implementation?
We're tracking very closely, as we always have, working and partnered with our Department of Procurement, Department of Law, Office of Contract Compliance and Risks to make sure that we're all lock in step about timelines for getting projects out. So we're continuing to put projects out. We haven't let up. We're got our eye on the prize, looking towards the future, but we're closely monitoring market conditions.
All right, well, thank you and your team for all you do. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Councilmember Hillis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Browning, for your always great and substantive quarterly updates. Picking up on a couple things that Councilmember Shook talked about first. He mentioned the backlog and the write-offs on uncollectibles. Have we started actual termination of service for all accounts, multifamily, commercial, single family?
So we are, we first efforts were concerning commercial accounts. Those started roughly 2 years ago. And we have initiated shutoffs for residential accounts. Multifamily, we've held on those. I think I spoke about those in the past, that they are a little bit more challenging because there's potential impacts to families, and customers who may be paying their bills, whereas you have others that may not. And those communities are either governed by an HOA or a management company handles the billings and the payment. So we have been having internal discussions with the administration and with Department of Law about what is going to be the approach for those for multifamily developments. So we're working to devise an approach for those customers.
Understanding that, that could affect hundreds of units. One of those approaches potentially taking that ownership to court and getting judgment against them, the owners of the properties.
We've not talked about any court action, but again, we're continuing to have discussions, and we'll try to figure out what's going to be the appropriate approach to bring those accounts into compliance.
Up on a second point, Councilmember Shook mentioned is enforcement. Seen the supplement we've received on some of the enforcement action, and he spoke about the low numbers that are moving to citation. These are citations, but just speaking about one property in particular, I turned in, I believe, last week, 1330 Fairmont. I mean, I've turned that into you all multiple times. You always go out, the team does, but it's wasting my time, wasting you all's time when you just continually go out and say, bad, 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 here's your stop work order, and then they're back at it, a few weeks later. I mean, you all have been out to that site 6+ times, probably more.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's a 3 strikes policy or what, but we've got to get something with more teeth in it than just continually handing out stop work orders.
Understood.
Continual violators. You spoke about staffing up. Where are we, particular as Councilmember Dozier spoke about, with site development reviews and inspections? Are we handling that internally? Are we reaching out to outside agencies to handle the bulk of that? Or and I'll also mention, I was joking with him that he pointed to site development, but I would say the arborist has some issues too. It's always one of the two that I get pinged about from applicants. So what's the status on that?
So with our inspections team, we're continuing to hire and fill those vacancies. And with regard to site development, we are continuing to try and look for internal candidates to hire with the city. But in light of some of the vacancies, we pivoted to our annual AE teams to provide supplemental support. So we've worked to get several of those team members on board recently, and they're a part of the team and coming up to speed pretty quickly on the process so that we can ensure that we're completing our reviews in a timely manner.
And so one of the issues we hear, not just from Watershed, but across the city is, I know we're in the citywide paying class study and they want to not mess with the buttons too much, but I've heard the departments aren't able to get up to that market rate because they've been told that we need to hold off for this paying class study, but I mean, that's quite a bit of ways away. So what leverage do you have to make those adjustments to,
So
lure these
we're,
people in,
you know,
work for
from a competitive salary standpoint, we always want to make sure that we're retaining talent. If it is, I mean, all of our employees are valued. In the case that they're looking towards another opportunity, we offer a counter, and we try to look at market rates, other utilities, even take a glance at private sector to make sure that we're staying competitive. We are, going to wait for the results of the pay and class study. But as we hire new employees, again, looking at market rates, other agencies, we're trying to work to ensure that we're bringing employees in at a decent salary. And with that, if there's any other groups or teams across the department where there might be potential issues of pay parity or inequities, we're going ahead looking at those and seeing where we can make necessary adjustments in advance of the pay and class study.
Understood. Staying with HR for a minute, notice on one of your slides, 84% of your turnover or resignations. Do you all perform exit interviews to gather data on why that is, and do you have any feedback?
We do. HR does share the feedback received from the applicants. It's for a variety of reasons, but I think overarchingly, it's just a competitive job market. They're able to go to the private sector or go to another agency and make more. So we're watching closely the feedback that we're getting.
And this is maybe something for your next quarterly, or, we have budget season coming up, but just wondering, DWM has a variety of funds, what the current surpluses are in those funds versus what you all have decided are, what needs to be kept at, the needed reserves, and how far over that are each of those funds?
So I think we can talk about, we've been able to, through this fiscal year, because our revenues have been pretty solid, so we're able to fund our reserve at capacity and satisfy our debt service and other operational requirements, but I'll let DC Williams speak to.
Again, this is Jonathan Williams. Absolutely, we can provide you a view of that. In terms of our cash balances, with the cost of money going up and the capital required to execute against things, we use it as quickly as it's not like we've just got a unending availability, but we're happy to provide that data to you going forward.
And another thing we're doing with regard to the reserves is the ability is we put projects out. Of course, hopefully they come within budget, but in the event that they are higher than the estimated price and still within range, that allows us to be able to how those projects proceed.
And we spoke about the legislation that's needed for the uncollectible accounts. Another piece of legislation that we have been speaking about for a while is legislation for needed fee updates. I mean, we're basically handing out water meters for free, and just in the quarter you presented on, we've installed 400 meters. So what is the timeline on that?
So we're working to get that polished off, those fee updates. We'll be socializing that with you in advance of what those fees will look like. So that is another goal we want to get through the finish line early spring.
As I always do, I want to applaud you on your quality metrics. And I don't know, maybe suggest you need to do a cabinet presentation one day on how great your quality metrics are, so I can see that in other committees. But on that, you know, as I've bugged you about since I've been here, since you've been here, is the hydrant quality metrics, and those continue to be in the red and the yellow. Where is that at? I know for a while we were contracting out those services. That didn't quite work out. I think we were doing it back in-house. So where is that? And when will we see maybe some green scattered about that red and yellow?
Good question. So we're continuing to chip away at the hydrant team. It's all internal, but we have recently engaged a third party to help strategically with repairs. And we'll continue to try to leverage and balance. It's not just the hydrants. We've got valves across the system that we need to address as well. So we're balancing internal and third-party resources, and we'll try to rebound those numbers as soon as possible.
All right, Commissioner, thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we'll have questions from Councilmember Bond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner, for your presentation. My questions, however, my first question is referenced in the presentation. I wanted to ask you about the status of Mr. Chester Bennett's situation. And can you educate in telling us about what's going on with him? And can you educate the public about the type of program that was created to address his issue?
Yeah, absolutely, Councilmember Bond. So we expanded the Care and Conserve program last year through council's approval to not only provide repairs and restoration as a result of water damage, but sewer backups as well. And so in the presentation, I said we're currently focused on 3 customers. Mr. Bennett is one of them. As far as I know, the vendor has been engaged, and I believe the work is underway for Mr. Bennett. Keeping with the program, the proceeds go towards materials, contractors' labor, as needed housing, temporary housing during repairs as needed. And so, you know, that has been extended to Mr. Bennett. We had staff visit with him. I believe he came to us as well. And we had some conversations with him about the process and the timeline. And so I think thus far he's relieved. We finally got to work, and our sincerest apologies for the huge delay.
I just think the public needs to know what you've done in helping to intervene on Mr. Bennett's behalf after such an egregious incident that literally drove him from his home. For those in the public who don't know, he's an 83-year-old senior citizen homeowner, had a severe backup in his home and was really without relief. And so I'm glad to see that I'm glad to have it put on the record that Mr. Bennett is being helped and in some aspects, you know, made whole again. You know, I worked with seniors in the mortgage industry for about 8 years, and it's a HUD fact that when a senior, regardless of the reason, is removed from their home, their life expectancy is cut in half. And I think he's been out of his home about 2 years now. And so anything that we can do to restore his quality of life and let him get back to living, I think is outstanding. And in that vein, I wanted to ask about, I guess, the opposite end of the spectrum, the PAT program. I know that at some point it was suspended, yes, due to COVID, and now Uncle Joe says COVID is over, so, or practically over. So what are the steps that you're going to take to, I guess, to restore the program? Because nothing works better than taking a person who's been incarcerated to get them fully engaged back in society is a job, a career. And so can you elaborate on that?
Yes, you see, to your point, yeah, the program is a bit suspended as a result of COVID. As we're coming around a corner, regaining from COVID, we're looking to reinstitute it, and that falls as part of our Chief Administrative Officer under his purview, focus on everything to do with our human capital, that PAT 3 program. So we're working with the sheriff and corrections and those departments in order to resurrect it and get viable candidates, all the same, who are interested in, maybe interested in, fostering a career within the water industry. We certainly want to do our part. We know a lot of the challenges of men and women that have been previously incarcerated and giving them a second chance to be a part of a very great workforce that's needed as public servants and giving back to the community. So.
And so do you have a timeline or projected time when that?
I'll have C.A. Williams talk a little bit about the timelines and status of.
Hey, good morning, Donald Williams, Chief Administrative Officer. So with the PAT 3 program, we've actually been working with Chief Dancy and his team. We thought we had a great lead on it last fall. We actually visited with the Georgia Department of Corrections reentry facility. We had a great visit over there, but the problem that we ran into was that they didn't offer like work release, so we weren't able to get the inmates to come work with us prior to them being fully released. We could not get them to actually come work with the department until they are fully released from the Department of Correction. So although that gave us some leads to potential employees, it wasn't exactly what we wanted nor what the Department of Corrections wanted. So we had to regroup, which they did recently in the December timeframe, talking about the way ahead. And I spoke with Major Johnson over there, I think that was last week. So I believe, Councilman, that within the next 90 days, we'll have a more solid lead, because honestly, the program that we had envisioned didn't work out exactly as we planned, and I was not comfortable with just offering employment to people that we did not know. We had no experience with them at all. So that is a process that we are still using as far as getting those leads with those individuals who are being released back into society, but we have to go through the normal process of recruitment, if that makes sense to you.
Well, I guess the question is, how did it work before it was suspended? Because they were.
So unfortunately, Councilman,
how did that?
It was before I got here. I've been here less than a year, so I'm not totally familiar with where they got the employees from, but I do know that Watershed did have a couple of employees through that program, but I don't know exactly what program or what process that they came from.
I guess we had to follow up with the sheriff, as he was the corrections chief that initiated the program.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Chief Danzy, his team is actually leading it, and we're partnering with them. Okay.
I'll follow up with Chief Dancy, but if you can keep us surprised in the next 90 days, that would be appreciated.
Absolutely.
And just going back to the commissioner, thank you. And just to follow up on the collections on multifamily, I guess, or multifamily residential, is the issue that they don't have individual meters for those units? Or, because I know that almost every rental place in Atlanta now charges water to some degree. even though people don't have meters. Is that the issue why, why we're not cutting them off?
So it varies. A lot of newer developments are opting for individual metering of units. These complexes are older, and so they typically have a couple of master meters. So, from that standpoint, the water bill is distributed amongst how many units are occupied and probably an average use of each unit. So that's some of the challenges. And again, considering some of the impacts regarding, families. What we're finding is you do have some customers who are, compliant and they're paying their bill. You have some that are not. And so you don't want to adversely impact customers that are, and to the detriment of others. And then also dealing with a governance standpoint of an HOA and or a management company that may be falling short of their responsibilities. So again, it's a very tricky situation. We're going to continue to have conversations and deduce what's going to be the best approach to deal with those accounts.
Going forward, should the city just require individual meters?
That is something that we're considering, yes.
That would seem to kind of
Yes.
solve the issue.
Yes, from a policy standpoint, that is absolutely something we're considering.
Some 20 years ago, I had a similar issue there on what was old Simpson Road. They had Mason Turner. The folks had been paying their portion of the water, but the manager, the owner, never paid the water bill. They never paid it, and eventually got cut off, and it was a crisis. Like, these folks have already paid, so why don't they have the service?
Right.
Right. All right. Thank you, Commissioner. I withdraw, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Bond. Next, we'll have questions from Councilmember Boone.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. You have a wonderful, wonderful team. They have helped so many folks in our community, especially those seniors. The walk-in at the front of City Hall is just magnificent. And those who have not used it, the folks there really, really have a heart for the people. They're courteous. And also, we had a serious leak at the C.T. Martin Recreation Center. Your senior team came out personally, and that huge problem was remedied. So thank you for that, and especially Deputy Commissioner Satterwhite, who always answers the call for the folks. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you, colleagues, and thank you, Commissioner Browning, for a very thorough presentation. I know you were peppered with lots of questions today from my colleagues. I think Councilmember Dozier thought he was in CDHS for a little bit when he started, but a lot of them asked most of the questions that I had. I did want to reiterate some of the comments that were made about site development in terms of just making sure we're staying on top of that and being more efficient with that program, because I know that when we had city planning here, Commissioner Prince, we had a very thorough conversation around how do we get past the backlog of applications that they have, and I know that part of that is housed within watershed management, and I think that collaboration is definitely needed to make sure that we get through that.
It is a big focus for me, and we'll work to do our part and, again, make sure that we are completing our reviews in a timely manner.
And then question about revenue projections. So we are seeing an increase in revenue projections. Are you also seeing expenses tracking kind of at the same level, or do we kind of expect to maybe have a surplus in terms of projections at the end of the fiscal year?
I think we'll have, at the current rate, we're going to have surplus. Revenues are strong. Again, our municipal option sales tax is strong, coupled with water, sewer billings. And obviously, we want to make sure that our expenses stay within budget. So we monitor those pretty closely, work with our deputy commissioners and other management team members to make sure that they are staying within their budgets and they're making fiscally responsible decisions with taxpayer dollars. So we're going to continue to be good stewards and just make sure that we are utilizing taxpayer dollars for the betterment of the city. and really trying to steer up as much of those monies towards projects that are important for renewal and replacement of our assets.
So if I hear you clearly, if we finish with a surplus, we'll look at trying to repurpose some of those money for projects that
More
are.
projects. Yep.
Projects, okay.
Yep,
Great.
absolutely.
And then last question was around some of the inspections. I saw that the hydrant leak was one that, was lagging a little bit. We've kind of started to catch back on it. Can you just talk us through the process of, how we got to a point where we were lagging, but now we seem to be caught up in terms of our response time on some of the inspections?
Yeah, so, we've got to add to that team. We've got hydrants, and as I was explaining to Councilman Hillis, we've got valves. So it's two teams, but they work hand in hand, and they got a little bit behind because of the cold snap, where the focus was largely on the main breaks. So we're still recovering from that late December event and working to get them back in SLA, coupled with trying to help with support from third-party vendors.
That's the last question for me. Thank you so much for coming in today for our very thorough quarterly report.
Okay, thank you.
Colleagues, we are ready for our regular agenda, but if you indulge, I did want to bring up a colleague of ours who's been waiting patiently. So, Mr. Johnson, I'd like to start with communications, if that's fine with everyone.
That's fine, Mr. Chair. We can jump down to Section I, resolutions. Section H, communications/resolutions. Item number 3, 23R3226, a resolution by the Atlanta City Council appointing Councilmember Keisha Shawn Waits to serve as the Atlanta City Council member on the Keep Atlanta Beautiful Commission for a term of 2 years for the purpose of performing the duties and responsibilities of the Commission for the City of Atlanta and for other purposes.
Councilmember Waits, would you like to tell us why you would like to add more on your plate?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One, I want to thank the body for the nomination and this opportunity, which is very special to me. Like many of you, I grew up in Atlanta, and so I'm a native. I've had the opportunity to see a lot of the growth that we've had in our city, and there are some parts of the city that have really outperformed. But there are other parts of the city that have challenges which we all uniquely know about. And so it's my hope to leverage corporate and philanthropic support to bring needed love and just a little bit of tenderness to those areas that have somehow been overlooked over the years. I recently met with Councilmember Norwood, who did a lot of work surrounding the 1996 Olympics. And as we prepare for the World Cup, I think it's important that our city reflect the diversity and all that we have to offer. And for that reason, during my tenure as a state representative, we were very successful in securing support from the Home Depot Foundation and other agencies that also care deeply about what our city looks like in terms of aesthetics and beautification. So, nonetheless, Councilmember Norwood was able to secure substantial funding from GDOT, and so we will be looking for support from GDOT, and I will also be looking for recommendations from each of you from your districts, whether that's citywide or district level, to look at some areas of the city that are blighted and that need a little bit more love and tenderness. And so nonetheless, this is important to me because I care about what Atlanta looks like. I grew up here, and for those of us who flew here, regardless, what Atlanta looks like and how we present to the world, I think is very important. And I'd like to start with a project at City Hall. So nonetheless, thank you for this opportunity, and I'm asking for your favorable support.
Thank you. Start with questions from Councilmember Lewis.
Okay, so I don't think that we could have chosen a better person for this time period. And think about somebody adding something to their plate that they just care about right now. I appreciate you being a constituent in District 12. Hopefully when you're on this committee, you take care of the stuff that you drive past every day too. And so I don't want to be the person to move approval because I already heard Councilmember Boone say she wants to do it. But I appreciate you for taking on this responsibility. I know it's a lot. Happy birthday to Kanika Greenway, sitting behind you, who was also Keep Atlanta Beautiful, the chairperson. Happy birthday to you. So I won't move approval, but I'll second.
Councilmember Hillis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Councilmember Waits. Obviously supportive of your nomination, but I did want to hear some. I know Ms. Greenlee is in the audience. Just an update on Keep Atlanta Beautiful, where it is, how often are y'all having these commission meetings, et cetera?
Good morning, Kanika Greenlee, Department of Public Works, Keep Atlanta Beautiful Commission. So we are looking to fully secure all the seats on the board. So this gets us one step closer to doing that. We also have some mayoral appointments that we're working with the administration on to fill as well. So I believe it was last year or maybe the year before last, we restructured the board and went from 21 to 14 members in order for us to achieve quorum. So we'll be working on that and then revitalizing the board. A lot of the mayoral appointments will be corporate appointments. So corporate partners in the Atlanta community is the board we're looking to fill in those mayoral appointment slots. We just are on the heels of finishing up that $4.1 million grant from the Recycling Partnership to improve recycling in the city of Atlanta. So we're looking to see what's the next steps. But as Councilmember Waits mentioned, there are a lot of things coming to Atlanta that need to have our attention and beautify, and we're looking to have more corporate partnerships to do some beautification projects around the city.
And once this commission is fully refreshed, so to speak, how often will they be meeting?
We meet every other month on the third Tuesday.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Waits, for your appetite to do more and serve for your city of Atlanta. So we thank you.
I move approval.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Boone, second by Councilmember Lewis. Mr. Johnson, can you please open the vote?
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable and will be referred to Committee on Council.
Congratulations,
Thank you,
Councilmember
Mr. Chairman
Waits.
and members.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Johnson, we'll go for ordinances for second reading. If we could start at item number 1.
Item number 1, 23-0-1098, an ordinance by City Utilities Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend the FY 2023 Water and Wastewater Renewal and Extension Fund budget in the amount of $1,050,000.00 to transfer funds from watershed reserves for appropriations and add funds to the annual supervisory control and data acquisition maintenance project and for other purposes.
Good morning, council members at a whole. My name is Daphne Rackley, Deputy Chief Information Officer for the Office of Information Management. And the purpose of this legislation is to move money from reserves in support of the SCADA platform. And SCADA basically stands for Supervisory Controls and Data Acquisition. And it does exactly that. It allows for the plant managers as well as the technicians working in the plants to access various systems and sensors throughout the plants remotely without having to go into manual mode. So the purpose of this is to allow for support of that SCADA platform. Also, coming before you probably in the next few months will be an RFP associated with the SCADA, a more comprehensive overhaul of the SCADA platform. So this is to bridge the gap between what's happening and what's needed now and that actual RFP for the complete SCADA overhaul. But the intention is to ensure that anything that's done now is in support of and complements the work associated with the RFP.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from my colleagues? Motion by Councilmember Bond, second by Councilmember Hillis. Can you please open the vote? Oh, sorry, do we correct mover? Actually, that was Councilmember Shook on the move. Thank you.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 2, 23-0-1099, an ordinance by City Utilities Committee to ratify services rendered in connection with the agreement FC 8919 annual contract for security guard services with Thorpe Building Services Incorporated, all-in-one services Incorporated, a joint venture, beginning March 13, 2023 through the execution of the Third Amendment, and to authorize the mayor or his designee to execute the Third Amendment to the agreement on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management and the Department of Public Works for the second extension of the term of the agreement on a month-to-month basis for a period up to 9 months, retroactively effective March 13, 2023 through December 13, 2023, an amount not to exceed $5,432,087.88, subject to and expressly contingent upon the adoption of the fiscal year 2024 budget. All contract work will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Morning.
Good morning, Chairman Winston and council members. I'm Director Sterling Graham for the Office of Safety, Security, and Emergency Management in the Department of Watershed Management. The purpose of this legislation is to amend Agreement FC 8919, Annual Contract for Security Guard Services, through which security services are provided for the Departments of Watershed Management, Public Works, and ATL DOT on a month-to-month basis for a period of no more than 9 months to allow the department to execute 2 replacement agreements. The current agreement provides manned security for 43 facilities. These facilities are critical infrastructure vital to water and wastewater services or considered high-priority sites. It offers remote security services for 31 locations as well. This is accomplished via remote security units, otherwise known as RSUs, which are cameras with speakers on it, and it's monitored by a separate secured operations center. The contract's base did not increase. The contracted amount by department is as follows. Department of Watershed Management, $2.8 million. ATL DOT, $367,000. DPW Fleet Services, $771,000. And DPW Solid Waste Services, $1.4 million. The current vendor has met and exceeded all the expectations and goals in the current contract. This includes the performance of remote security units, security personnel at various facilities, record keeping, and all our digital deliverables. This concludes my remarks at this time. I'm happy to address any questions you may have.
Thank you, Director Graham. We'll start with questions from Councilmember Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question. Why month to month as opposed to a new procurement, or is that ongoing? Because if I imagine that at some point that month to month contract is going to end and we're going to want to renegotiate the current contract that we have. So if you just talk through the process while we're going to month versus maybe 6 or 7 months ago have gone through another procurement for.
And so my understanding, based on conversations with one procurement specialist, is that the month-to-month is subsequent to the new agreement being adopted, fully executed, and then that would terminate at that time. That's why it's month-to-month.
All right. Next, we have Councilmember Hillis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This question may be for Commissioner Browning, because this isn't necessarily related to internal security services, but it's my opening as Public Safety Chair. So when Department of Watershed Management and other departments may do this too, have an outside contractor that they've hired to do sewer work, water line work, et cetera, we're obviously paying their costs to secure traffic control and enforcement. However, a lot of times I'm seeing that traffic control and enforcement being Rockdale County Sheriff's deputies, Walton County Sheriff's deputies, everything outside of Atlanta. How do we get to a point where when you hire a contractor, we have something enforceable that says they can only hire APD officers, possibly Fulton County Sheriff's officers, and state GSP or MCCD officers?
Yeah, to your point, when we do have construction contractors, depending on the nature of the work, for traffic control, they'll have flaggers, which are skilled services that a vendor can provide, and then depending on the traffic layout, they will have to have a uniformed officer provide support. It's through the vendor to, retain those services. I presume that they have, different mechanisms and organizations that they go through to retain uniformed officers as needed. I think that it may be just a policy thing that we need to maybe have more discussions about. If the thought is to focus on Atlanta Police or within certain jurisdictions to provide support on construction contracts associated with City of Atlanta. So,
Yeah, I would certainly appreciate you looking into that, so we keep that money with, our Atlanta officers, or at very least, like I said, Fulton County officers, and of course, state officers at GSP and MCCD. And
understood.
it costs us a little more, but at least we're spending it on our own people. So that's something I'd definitely like you to look into, putting that enforcement mechanism in the contracts. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Bond.
Just want to remind the body that I passed legislation to that effect last term, that we prioritize the hiring of Atlanta police officers, not only for this type of duty, but for directing traffic, et cetera, because even though these folks may be post-certified law enforcement officers, if they're a deputy for another jurisdiction, they have no jurisdiction in Atlanta. So if they harm somebody or club them or, heaven forbid, shoot them, we are liable as a city and police agency for the conduct of officers that we allow on our streets. So this is something that it was addressed last term. I don't know why it hasn't translated into these contracts, but it was unanimous.
Thank you, Councilmember Bond. There are no further questions or comments. Do we have who's the motion? Motion by Councilmember Shook, second by Hillis. Please open the vote, Mr. Johnson.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable. This takes us to Section I, Resolutions. Item number 4, 23R3243, a resolution by City Utilities Committee authorizing the mayor as designee to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the City of South Fulton on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management for construction services related to the Fairburn Road Phase 2 Improvement Project along Fairburn Road in Fulton County, an amount not to exceed $2,429,000.00. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Commissioner Browning, I think we have you speaking to this.
All right, good afternoon, Chairman Winston, council members, Makita Browning, Department of Watershed Management. Purposes legislation is to request the mayor to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the City of South Fulton in an amount not to exceed $2,429,000 for construction services required to relocate City of Atlanta water infrastructure that conflicts with the project Fairburn Road Phase 2 roadway improvements. City of South Fulton has proposed roadway improvements for Fairburn Road from Fairburn Utoy Springs Connector Road to North Utoy Creek. The proposed project will make sidewalk improvements and replace bridges over North and South Utoy Creek. CRA DWM has an existing 30-inch transmission water main and various valves, hydrants, and services within the project limits. The proposed roadway construction will require relocation of 5 water meters with additional service lines, 1 fire hydrant assembly, and 2 relocations of transmission mains at North and South Utoy Creek crossings totaling 430 linear feet. The 30-inch transmission main must maintain service throughout construction by use of line stops and temporary bypass pumping. So to expedite the staging of construction and minimize service interruptions, it's in our best interest of public to include DWM's utility adjustments and City of South Fulton's construction contract. This program limits COA's liability to traffic and safety concerns, as well as it'll be a part of milling and paving of the project. So the IGA provides for the City of Atlanta's design and related CM services as part of City of South Fulton's construction contract, subject to your questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Browning. Any questions, comments? Got a motion by Councilmember Shook, second by Hillis. Mr. Johnson, can you please open the vote?
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. And Mr. Chair, that concludes our legislative items for today.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, announcement from my colleagues for the greater body? Councilmember Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be brief. Just a reminder, next Thursday, March 9th at 6:30 p.m., District 4 will be hosting our first quarterly town hall of the calendar year. We'll be joined by the Department of Community Services, specifically the ATL 311 team, to talk about how residents and businesses and other stakeholders can get involved with that system, as well as hear from me and from my team about updates specific to District 4. It will be at Wild Leap Brewing, which is right down the street from here at City Hall, but at the corner of Ted Turner and Trinity, and hope to see you all next Thursday.
Thank you. Any other? Councilmember Bond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tomorrow, March the 1st, the HelloFresh Weekly Food Distribution in partnership with Second Helpings Atlanta, Pratt Industries, and the City of Atlanta will take place at the Hosea Helps headquarters at 2545 Forest Hills Drive at 2 p.m. There's no prerequisite to receive this help. If you don't need it, please pass the word along to someone who does. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Councilmember Boone.
Yes, I would like to thank the Department of Public Works, who worked so tirelessly with the family of Mr. Jerry Parks, who labored tirelessly with the City of Atlanta and the Department of Public Works, the Solid Waste Department. I believe he was an installation chief. He passed 2 weeks ago. His funeral was held at New Horizon on Saturday. This department really came through for that family. And to my colleagues who supported the family of Jerry Parks, we appreciate every sentiment that you all sent, the letters, flowers, proclamations, and food items to the family. So special thanks to Commissioner Al Wiggins, Ms. Kanika, Mr. Moses, Ms. Verna, who supplied the hostesses, and to the Office of Constituent Services, Ms. Manley. Thank you all so much.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you all. We stand adjourned.